It's been nearly a year since the Garmin Xero C1 Pro chronograph hit the market and took the shooting community by storm as far as revolutionizing modern chronographs yet again in recent years. I wrote a review on the Garmin Xero C1 Pro chronograph for my blog at okobj.net several months ago, so definitely read that. But since it's been a year of ownership, I figure now's a good time to do a video review talking about why you should get the Garmin Xero C1 Pro chronograph over anything else currently on the market. And first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and just talk about is the portability. And I have the Labradar, owned this since 2016. I have the MagnetoSpeed V3. I've had this about maybe since 2018. Both are good chronographs. However, you can see here, the Labradar, in its case with my homemade bench rest stand, relatively sizable. The MagnetoSpeed I have here rigged up with my Wiser Precision mount. This is kind of a little bit of an anomaly because most people are going to carry around the case with the shims. So that's going to be about this little bit smaller than a Labradar and about a little bit lighter, but pretty much you have the display, cable, and then the bayonet, the actual sensors, and whatever you're going to use to mount to your rifle. And this is the Garmin Xero C1 Pro. And this is in a Coltac case. And this is actually larger than, a little bit larger than it needs to be. You can actually get it smaller, but I have a separate mount for it in here, which we'll get to later. But this is portable, a lot more portable. This can still into a bag, into the pouch of my rifle case. I don't even have to think about it. Much less to think about compared to this or this. So that's kind of why, like the number one reason why most people prefer something like this is simply less to carry. Number two, it's ready to go out of the box. If you buy the Garmin Xero C1 Pro chronograph, you're going to get everything you need to get up and running. I'm going to go ahead and just strip off the extra accessories here just so you can get an idea of what we're looking at. But this is what you're going to get out of the box with this Garmin Xero C1 Pro chronograph. This is all you need. It comes with a tabletop tripod or a ground tripod, mini tripod, the unit, and that's it, and you're ready to go. No extra accessories. Unlike with the Labradar, you're going to have to get a tripod. You have to get a tripod or some other system to place it where you want it next to your rifle or your gun in order to shoot it. So you're not ready to go out of the box. MagnetoSpeed, you are going to be ready to go out of the box. However, you're going to have to strap it on your barrel, and it's a lot more cumbersome because you're going to have to sit there with all your shims trying to figure out how the correct height, how to strap it on your barrel without striking the bayonet with the bullet. So it's ready to go out of the box, but not easy to get going out of the box compared to the Garmin Xero C1 Pro chronograph. That being said, it's easier to get going because the menu system is intuitive. Labradar, you will need to read the instructions. The MagnetoSpeed, you can kind of figure things out, but Labradar for sure you need to read the instructions. There's like when I first got it, I couldn't figure out how to arm the Labradar to turn it on, like the actual radar itself, and how to get out of the Labradar in order to, or the radar sensing mode to get to the menu to view my shots. So you do have to read the instructions. This, it's got an onboard guide. It tells you once you turn it on, you just hold down the power button and it's ready. It kind of guides you through. It's very self-explanatory. It even tells you once you start selecting what gun you're going to shoot and what velocity range you're going to shoot, then it tells you, hey, set it up this orientation, this distance away from the muzzle, etc. So it's very easy to understand. As far as the other pros for this is the built-in battery. So this has a built-in lithium-ion battery. It's chargeable through USB. It lasts about, what does this say, 6 hours or 2,000 shots, compared to the Labradar, which you'll need multiple AA's, or you can use another USB power pack, which you can buy elsewhere. Doesn't come with it. Most people have one for their cell phones, but not everyone does. So most likely you're going to have to buy a separate battery pack to power this Labradar. MagnetoSpeed runs on a 9-volt, or for the life of me, I didn't realize it can run on CR123s. I would have not been buying 9 volts, but it does use a 9-volt, but it can run on CR123As, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check that. In any case, so you don't have to worry about, batteries running out in theory, because you don't have to go find other batteries for it, right? If your 9-volt dies, you got to go find another 9-volt. If your AA's died, you got to go find AA's. Hopefully you have a power pack for this. This it's in built in, and if it dies, then you just charge it with anything that can charge USB. So that's what's great about this. Reliable shot detection. Shot detection on this is nearly perfect. Labradar has gotten a lot of flack in recent years, or ever since it was built and put on the market. People complain it's hard to, sometimes it doesn't detect shots. I haven't had that problem, only with rimfire. Well, I'll take that back. I do, like when you're setting up with the center fire, sometimes you set it up too close or you have the sensitivity too high and you get like these weird errors. So in that regard, yes, Labradar, it does have those nuances that you have to work through. Magneto speed, it's pretty reliable. On occasion, I'll have errors if you don't set the bayonet at the correct height from the bore line. The Garmin, you just pretty much set it and you go. It's pretty difficult to have this not read your rounds. The only time I've had it drop rounds or not pick up rounds is when I'm shooting rimfire and you're shooting relatively fast. When you're shooting rimfire, it kind of needs a few seconds between each shot to reset. But if you're constantly cycling the bolt and shooting really fast, or if you're shooting in 10/22 and just blasting through rounds, it's not going to pick up those shots. So those are the times when I've noticed that it won't pick up shots, is if you shoot too fast, especially with rimfire. Variety of mounting options is a huge thing with the Garmin Xero C1 Pro. You saw here, had the mini tripod, but when I pulled it out of my pouch here, I have it on this Area 419 Arca mount, which you can just mount on your rifle. And I have it backwards, but I usually have it on the left side. But you can have it mounted on your rifle. So you can have it mounted like this. I'll have it on the gun, put it on the forend, Arca rail, you're ready to shoot. I can actually have an Arca plate and I can clamp this on top of my rifle. And we can, put it on top of a scope, like the scope diving board, if you have one on your scope mount. Put on another tripod. If you're shooting a handgun, you can just have it on a separate tripod next to you. Lots of different ways you can mount this. It's just because it's so compact. Labradar, you kind of restricted here. I'm just going to pull it out real quick. This deal here, and you're restricted here on your mounting point here. I put an Arca plate here so I can put it on any clamp that supports Arca. Pretty much gonna have one on the bench top here with like my homemade benchtop tripod plate, or I'll have a separate tripod on the side. And that's kind of where you're kind of restricted. And you're restricted by flat ground, because if you have uneven ground, it's going to be tilting, and you've got to make sure that you've got it. You can have a ball head to adjust it. Magneto speed, your options are limited. You either strap it to your barrel, or you strap it to an Arca rail, or your chassis mount in some fashion, like you get a third-party Wiser precision mount. I used to have the MPA mount that mounted to their chassis, but I put it on this thing so I don't have to strap it to my barrel and affect my point of impact when I have this on the gun. And trust me, it does affect your point of impact. I was in an NRL Hunter match, and during the sighting period, or the sighter day, and then they were checking velocities for power factor. They had magneto speeds that they wanted us to use, and when I strapped their magneto speed on my barrel and I wasn't thinking about it, I was freaking out because my point of impact shifted like 3 minutes. And I was like, why is my point of impact shifting? I freaked out and I thought my scope had came out of alignment. But then when I went to go double check it without the magneto speed, I realized, oh, it's fine. It was the magneto speed. Any case, your mounting options here are kind of restricted. So that's why I like this. It's versatile, so many different ways. And just an FYI, if you have the Area 419 Arca mount, you don't have to take it off the Arca mount if you want to mount it on a tripod, because it has a 1/4" 20 threaded hole there for the tabletop tripod that it comes with. Or you can just clamp this again onto another tripod, because this is Arca rail or Arca dovetail on the bottom of that. Multiple options. And the functional phone app, we'll mention that, and my phone's on another bench, but the phone app is pretty good. It detects detects easily, and you use it to download your data from this to a phone, and from there you can export CSV from your phone to some other device, or you can email it to yourself. The Labradar has a phone app, but it's very unreliable. I never used it. I tried it, just didn't bother. It was constantly disconnecting, so I just never bothered using it. And I never really needed it, to be honest, because you can read everything off of this easily, and you can pull out the SD card, and you can put that in your computer pull out the SD card and put it in your computer, and you can read it off that. This, you can't pull it out Even if you can plug it into your computer, I believe you can read the data, but it's going to be in a proprietary format, but we'll get to that in a second. But the phone app is pretty good. I literally was shooting some rounds earlier. I went to get my phone and while I was walking to the bench while this was still on, but not in radar mode, I opened up the shot view app and I looked on my strings. It had already pulled the 6 strings that I had just shot onto my phone. So it's really good. Like it's fast, intuitive, and easy to use. So it's a good phone app there. We'll just go back a little bit to the compact lightweight factor of this, which I kind of went over, but this, to give you a quick kind of reference here, this is kind of what you're looking at here as far as Garmin versus Labradar. The Garmin only weighs 3.7 ounces without any tripod or mounts, and it's 5.5 ounces with the tripod and the little tabletop tripod and the Garmin unit itself. So less than half a pound versus this, which is, I believe this one weighs 2 pounds. I think 2 pounds, 10 ounces, roughly 2 pounds, 2.1. I don't have it down on my notes here. But as far as size, you can plainly see it's like a 1/16 of the size of the Labradar. It's compact, so huge difference there. Now I've glossed over, or sorry, I've covered over all the different reasons why I think this is so much better. It's not 100% perfect, and there are a few nuances that you need to be aware of. Number one is a non-removable battery, so if the battery dies, you do need a way to charge it. You can't just quickly swap out batteries to power it. So you will need to have a USB power source, like a USB power pack for your phone, or if you have a car charger, just turn on your vehicle and then charge this up on the car charger with a USB connection and let that charge for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes and get enough to get it going for your range session. There's no downrange velocity readings. A lot of people complain about that. I don't care about that, but a lot of people want downrange velocity readings so they can true up their BCs. The Labradar can do that, but I think it only does it out to 50 or 100 yards. Magnetospeed obviously doesn't do that. I think there's a couple other ones on the market, alternatives, that claim to do it. I think Caldwell made one that goes out to 100 or something. But yeah, this does not read downrange velocities. And then the other item is the reliance on the shot view app to get your data off of it. So if you're not going to read it off the LCD screen, you'll use the shot view app to pull it to your phone, the data to your phone, and then from there you can either read it on your phone or you can export CSV from your phone to an email or save it on your cloud drive or whatever you have connected. And then from there you can read those CSVs and mess with the data however you want to do it. I did mention earlier that you can plug this into a computer using the USB connection, and it'll mount like a drive, like a removable drive. However, the files will be in a proprietary FIT format, which is Garmin's file format. You'll need a software development kit to interpret that data. And the last time I checked several months ago, it didn't really have the data objects. If you're familiar with the SDKs and object-oriented programming and whatnot, and how they do data structures, they didn't have the chronograph data structures built out. I don't think it was all oriented towards fit, like fitness apps or their fitness profiles or fitness devices. So it's talking about distances, steps, and I think elevation and stuff. So it has like distances on here, or like it references distances, but it has the velocities here. But you have to get them into a different. You have to convert it into units, and plus the headers for the fields in those files don't match up what would be velocity data. So it's kind of hard to explain, but at the time the SDK wasn't really ready for this device to read these files. I'm sure, I haven't checked in recent months, but maybe they've adjusted that. But it's not a big deal to me. I don't feel like writing an app or my own program to read the files. I think getting it off my phone into a CSV is good enough for me. Anyway, I think this is the most convenient chronograph ever. It's so easy to pack. I don't have to pack my Labradar anymore. Like this, finding either this or my other tripods and making sure I have a tripod ready to go for the Labradar. Magnetospeed on for worry about carrying this around and adjusting it and moving around on this Wiser Precision mount for the different guns that I use it with. And this is just so easy. And I can just, during an NRL 22 match, during the zero period, someone didn't have a velocity or didn't have velocities for their ammo, so they didn't know what to put in their calculator, the ballistic calculator. I just took this out of my bag, walked over to their rifle, which had an arc rail on it, and just threaded or clamped it on, let them shoot, and they got their velocities. Another person, I just set this next to their gun because they didn't have arc rail, put it down on the ground while they're shooting, they got their velocities. Very easy to use. It's probably the best chronograph that you can get right now for most, your average shooter. So highly recommend it. If you want to read more or just see more photos and stuff on my blog, check it out, okfj.net. I'll put a link to the written article. But 1 year later, owning the Garmin Xero C1 Pro, definitely you should get one. The price I think is still around $600. I can't remember, but it's money well spent. If you can't afford this, I would probably still get a Labradar if you shoot handgun. If you shoot handgun, get a Labradar. You can find these on the used market for well under $300 now. If you shoot rifle only, I would get a Magneto Speed. I think this is just probably going to be easier. If you're willing to use an ARCA or chassis mounted system, if you're going to strap it to your barrel, I don't know. I would rather use a Labradar than strap the Magneto Speed bayonet to my barrel. I just feel that it's too cumbersome. It's like takes too long, and especially if I get a new gun, then you're trying to figure it all out. I just don't want to deal with that. Anyway, that's it for this year-end or like 1 year review of the Garmin C1 Pro chronograph. If you don't already have one, you should consider getting one. Thanks for watching.